Welcome, Chamber members, to the fourth in our series of Chamber Conversations. We've had to pivot like everyone else. We used to really look forward to seeing our legislators at a big breakfast we used to throw up at the Delaplane, but this year we're not going to be able to do that. So instead, we're focusing kind of one-on-one on our legislative delegation to Annapolis. And today I'm really excited to talk to Senator Ron Young. Senator Young serves on the Judicial Proceedings Committee. He's also chair of the Senate Executive Nominations Committee, which is a really important post in the General Assembly and constitutional process in Maryland. He is the joint chair of the Subcommittee on Program Open Space and Ag Preservation, something from his past that he's very passionate about. He served on the Frederick City Board of Aldermen from 1970 to 1974. And for all of you who have walked on the beautiful Carroll Creek Linear Park or have enjoyed a beautiful, historically preserved downtown Frederick, you got to credit our guest today because he served as the mayor of the city of Frederick from 1974 to 1990, a really critical time in setting the long-term plan and vision for what is arguably Maryland's most precious historic downtown. So, Senator Ron Young, I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you today. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here.
So this year has certainly been unprecedented. We've had to adjust our lives and our work to the pandemic. We're a little bit stressed because there's a national political election underway. And we've seen nationwide protests surrounding minority communities and law enforcement. Would you please talk about the issue of police reform and criminal justice legislation?
Yeah, I'll try to summarize a little because it's a real extensive thing. We had a 3-day hearing about a month ago, and 12 bills were presented, all on law enforcement reform. And we did 3 entire days and had state's attorneys and police chiefs and ACLU and all the various groups in. And I think we're going to probably even do much. That's going to be the dominant issue for our committee this whole time. I have a bill that I didn't think was quite on there that I'm going to add to the list, which I'm sure I'll get an argument about, but I think it's in some ways more important than all the rest of them. We are looking to establish standards, police standards, cameras, for issues like the choking thing. But I really feel that what we really need to do more than anything is screen the police applicants and keep people with real aggressive tendencies off, people that have joined fringe groups, whether it's the KKK or on the opposite end, on the liberal side. We need to get people that aren't coming on with an agenda, kids that weren't bullied in 7th grade and want to get even. So I want to see a psychological exam given to every officer before they come on. And if they're not suited, reject them. And if they want to then seek psychological help and try again in the future, we could look at them then. But, we can pass a law saying you can't choke. But if somebody has the tendency to choke, whether it's a law or not, we've seen it happening after laws have already been passed. So I actually think screening and getting people that aren't coming onto the police force for the right reason is a much better solution. If we do that, a lot of the other things that we're going to address kind of take care of themselves. Not that you won't always have some incidents, but I just really think screening them and getting the right kind of people on the force. I had a police force under me for 16 years as mayor, and I did at DNR. We had 2 police forces while I was there. And, I don't know what the exact percent is, but 95, 98% of police officers are good people there to do the job. And we need to screen out the others and see that we don't have that trouble. But a lot of the bills that we're looking at are wearing body cameras. If a police officer sees another police officer doing something out of line, misconduct, he has to report it. We're talking about eliminating, it's a proposal to eliminate the policeman's Bill of Rights, saying everyone has a Bill of Rights. Why should they have a special one? But we're looking at eliminating no-knock warrants unless, you know, someone is in immediate danger or there's thoughts that they'll flush something down that we can't get in. But, you know, we had the incident where the young woman was shot when the police broke in the middle of the night and they're in bed, and the guy she was with, who had a permit, was scared, grabbed a gun, fired a shot, and she got killed. And I think there are ways to eliminate the possibility of that kind of thing happening. So there's police reform needed. You know, the subject comes up of defunding police. I think it was a horrible title to use. There are people that actually mean that, but most don't. What they're saying is, you know, we need police officers. I mean, if somebody's breaking your house and trying to murder you, you want a police officer to show up. Right. But the idea is that if it's a marital dispute, it might be good if there was someone trained in marital relations, a psychologist or something, to go to de-escalate the situation rather than the police having to be a cop and a psychologist and every other thing. So the real issue with that is taking a look of having the right people there, not punishing police, per se. No. So there's a whole list of issues, and I know we're going to spend hour upon hour on every one of them and try to strike a balance where the public is protected and has their rights, but the police are protected and have their rights. We need them, but we need to see that the good ones are doing what they're doing, and we protect against the few that step outside of the bounds.
And you'll deal with all those issues in JPR because that's a committee of jurisdiction. So.
Yeah, and that's probably going to be the major thing we're going to be doing this year, to come out with something that's a real balance to work for everybody.
That's great. So I also want to talk to you about another issue I know you're really passionate about. And I get to thank you on video for all the members of the chamber when I talk about how directly you got involved in the issue of the Veteran Services Center out off Monocacy Boulevard and Riverside Corporate Park. That wouldn't be moving forward were it not for your active advocacy, and you stepped in early on in the process to be a voice for that. And I know you're working on a bill to deal with veterans homelessness. Would you talk to us about those veterans issues that matter so much to you?
Yeah, I was really glad they contacted me, and I was able to help and get a pledge for $500,000 for the facility right away. And I brought the secretary up here, and I think he was a little reluctant at first, wondering just what we were doing. When he got here and saw what we were doing, he was 100% committed, and they're moving everything out there. And so what we're looking for is a one-stop shop for veterans to help them from any psychological problems they have, job training, whatever. The bill I have, I had 40 co-sponsors one year out of the 47 of us, but they killed it anyhow. The president did. The veterans clubs, they don't call them slot machines, but that's what they really are. They're instant bingo or something. Have 5 machines. The fraternal clubs have asked for the same thing. A lot of those clubs, like the Elks, do all kind of community things, and they've been struggling. So I agreed to try to get them 5 machines, but as part of that, I want the top 10% of the intake to go to support homeless veterans. And if it could be worked out, the kind of thing I'd like to see is take the veteran center we have and build a 7,500 unit homeless veterans housing right next to it, attached, so that not only could they get all the services they need, but they could stay right there. They'd be provided a home, and while they're getting the training and while they're getting the help, and you don't get into how they get there and the transportation issues and services being all over the place. So the bill, if all the clubs get in on it, would end up producing a couple $1 million a year. So my preference is that a good portion of that money would go to doing a shelter right here at this facility. And the idea of this facility was to be a regional model for all over the state and possibly all over the country. So we could move from shelter to shelter as, or veterans facility to veterans facility as they're built, and really do a comprehensive service to the veterans in Maryland. And the president of the Senate's had a problem with the bill. He says, oh, we're expanding gambling, and where does it stop? But frankly, we're expanding gambling anyhow. I mean, the sports bill's the next thing coming. But these clubs, they don't have people come in from outside to play. It's the members. And they're really not taking anything away from the casinos or anybody else, but they're helping the clubs. And more importantly, it would help the veterans.
So I talked to the CEO of the Central and Eastern Arizona Goodwill that took over our local Goodwill Industries of Monocacy Valley. And he specifically mentioned your advocacy as the reason why Goodwill is nationally is attached to this project and so supportive, because they really do see it as a model that can be replicated all across the country. Yeah. But he specifically cited having a local legislative advocate in the state legislature who was pushing for this. So,
well, aside from all the legislation and whatever, and I'll tell you, being mayor's a greater job than being a senator. Somebody said, oh, you've stepped up. No, I didn't. I stepped down. Because as a mayor, if you want to do something in your community, you can have immediate effect and see it happen. We pass the bill and hope that 3 years or 5 years from now or sometime it does some good. But maybe the two most important things to me as a legislator, and I think they probably were to you too, is constituent service, how you can help your people back home. We've had a horrible time with the unemployment, and that's occupied a huge amount of our time during this, trying to get people the help they need. And it's reoccurring right now. It's stepped back up again. And they're having trouble again getting people taken care of quickly. But constituent service altogether, my last executive assistant, we had 2 cases of a young girl with a disease that the only treatment for it in this country was in California. And the local doctor who had a brain tumor, and the only doctor in the country that's operated on that type of brain tumor successfully, was in Texas, but they would not allow either of them to go. And she got on the phone for me and bullied her way through. The young girl got to California and the doctor got to Texas. We were afraid it might be too late for him, but the operation was successful. Mm-hmm. So helping like that. And the other thing then is bringing money back home to help with projects like the one we just talked about with the Veterans Center. Unfortunately to me, because of a lot of the fighting and all, the money for the hotel died. And hopefully the city and county can work it out some way. And if we can help, we can, but it's going to be hard to go back for money again after what's happened. But last year, $5 million that had been committed was released. And Senator Huff and I sat down with Senator Brinkley, and we sat down with the chairman of our committee, and they let us keep the $5 million for Frederick County, and was able to help a lot of local projects. That was a one-time gift. We'll never get that kind of money again.
Understood.
But we got $500,000 for the homeless shelter up at the old Board of Education building, and we got money to expand the fire center training area. We got money for Lake Leonore. We got money for several arts groups. Recently, Blaine helped set up a meeting with you that you had down at your place, and was able to get on the phone and make the connection, and hopefully we're getting the money for the Rowlett to help with the Rowlett's funeral home. So being able to do things like that for your community and help your citizens, to me, though the legislation's important, we can do more good back home if we get involved like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've told people for 20 years that a mayor, small town mayor or big city mayor, like, Maryland's second largest city, or being a town manager, which is a part of our shared history, is the most powerful motivator for getting the wheels of government to turn to fix people's problems. Because when you're standing at that service counter in town hall or city hall and somebody comes in with a problem, they don't want to hear that you blame it on the county or the state or the feds. They want you to fix the problem. So I think that's part of our shared history that has well informed us in all the things that we've done since then.
I sometimes wish that everybody had to serve in local office before they ran for the legislature, because they have a much better understanding of dealing with people and what the needs are back here.
Agree with you 100%. So speaking of that, I know that healthcare providers and advocates from across the state come to you with issues because they know you're going to pursue those issues, both with your history on the Environment, Health, and Educational Affairs Committee, but really just your influence in the Senate. So I'd like you to speak about a couple of bills, kind of why they matter and what you think the prospects are. Your speech pathology and audiology compact, your pharmacy bill, and then the living donor bill.
Well, I think the living donor bill would have probably passed last year if we hadn't, run into the conditions we did. So we're bringing back, that's just a tax credit for people that have to take off work to donate an organ to someone. And it's not a big one, but when people step forward and do something like that, they lose time, they lose revenue, they sometimes have to bring help in, and it's just to give them a break. The pharmaceutical bill, and boy, we could have had that with what's going on. It just grants the pharmacist a little more leeway in giving injections. I just recently got my flu shot and the first of the two new shots for shingles, and I did them at the pharmacy. I walked in, they did it immediately. The flu shot was free. The other shot is $40, but for what it'll do, I know people that have had shingles. I don't want that. And it's a convenience thing, and particularly a lot of people that have drug problems that require shots to help them. Psychologists and psychiatrists who deal with them really don't want to do that anyhow. And so it makes it available in their neighborhood and quickly. So some of the doctors have a problem, and we try to keep it that people have the option to go to the doctor, that it still has to be cleared by the doctor. The pharmacist just can't do it on his own. But it's a matter of convenience and cost. And I think we'll get that through to this year too. I'm hoping. The audiology bill, they came to me. I've gotten a couple compact bills through. Basically, and we're a small state that borders several other states. There are people that if they live out in Cumberland, they're right next to West Virginia, and they practice in both places. It allows people that meet a uniform standard of the compact to treat people that might be from out of their state or whatever, and it's a mutual thing, and it works out well. The compacts we've had have all worked out well. So this is one more area for that. And I guess the last big one I have is a seizure bill, and I think they came to me on that one because I got a similar bill through for diabetes. And this is just that one class in school in the first 5 years of school and one in the last 7 for students to recognize seizures and to know what it is and how to react when it happens. And for 2 people in the school, one can be the school nurse and another a volunteer, to know what to do again if someone has a seizure. At one of the conventions I went to, a guy had a seizure right in front of me. He was laying on the floor and going, I had no idea what to do. And the more we can have awareness and training to help people like that in those instances. And if it had been the diabetes issue, I would have known what to do because my little sister had it, and I hated the idea of giving a needle, but I got trained in how to do it. If something happened to my sister, I could react. So we just keep looking at things like that to raise awareness and to make help more readily available when needed.
That's great. And a lot of the discussion and national debate on access to healthcare deals with high concepts like insurance and those kinds of things. The bills that you just talked about, each one of them in their own right increases access to health services, right? So it doesn't have to be big insurance reform or those kinds of things. It can be targeted to making sure people can get into their local pharmacy to get their flu shot. That's increasing access to healthcare.
Yes.
So this is going to be a really tough session, and I honestly could talk to you for hours, and we probably wouldn't keep as many viewers. Didn't keep it to 25 minutes or so, but I really did want to ask you about the fiscal conditions, because I know through your work and through your colleagues' work and the administration's work, we're in pretty good shape with revenue for the current year. And we're not in as bad a shape for the 21 year that we thought we were going to be because of COVID. But for that 22 years, they look really bleak. Could you talk about kind of what it looks like and what might be done about it?
The out years do look bad. And, it's going to have to be a combination of things. We don't want to, I think most of us don't want to raise taxes, but we do have to look at some other revenue sources that don't have real strong impacts on hurting business or whatever. And there are several out there, and we're going to have to one by one look at them. For example, I don't think there's any doubt that within 5 years, and people may or may not like this, that marijuana is going to be legal. So, I mean, the medical marijuana is now. So that's the source of revenue. It's a big profit business, and it shouldn't just all go to the companies. It ought to come back and be of use to the community. And the sports betting is another one. One that I've had in, I know the chamber hasn't liked, but combined reporting on restaurants and retail. We see $90 million a year go out of state, and there are companies that do business here. Everybody picks on them, so I'll use as an example Walmart. They transfer their profits back to Arkansas and pay the taxes back there. All we're looking at is the taxes they are going to pay. They should pay here on the profits they make here rather than to Arkansas. And it doesn't increase prices. People are already paying that cost. It's just not staying here.
Right.
And it isn't going to run any businesses out. If we put combined reporting on companies like biotech, they might leave because they could go to state, though there are less and less states that aren't doing this now. About 27 states have combined reporting, red states and blue states. But with chain restaurants, and that's what we're talking about, not local businesses, chain restaurants and chain stores, we're just keeping the taxes on the profits they make here. And it's 90 million a year that's going out that could stay here and doesn't cost anybody anything. So whether that one happens or which of the others, there are a lot of alternatives. And we're going to really have to examine programs to see where we can get efficiencies and contain costs. It just can't be increased revenue. We've got to look at the whole balance. I actually, if Mike Miller left, I'm supposed to go onto the budget committee. I wanted to have a bigger play in that, both from frankly enjoying it, and secondly, helps get money back here too.
Sure.
So, but I don't know if that'll happen this year. I don't know what Mike looks like he's doing well. He's going way beyond where anybody thought. So I hope he stays healthy and whatever. I'm a little worried about him, not how it affects me coming back, because if he came back and got the virus, it would probably be the end. I mean, he's so susceptible. So, you know, I hope wherever he enjoys the last years of his life with his family, he certainly deserves them, because he's been a great asset to the state of Maryland for decades. So, but I may or may not be on budget committee, or I may still be on the judicial committee.
Well, wherever you are, one thing I know, the people of District 3 and Frederick County and Maryland at large are benefited by the background that you bring with you, the relationships that you've developed over decades, your knowledge of these programs and COMAR and how it impacts people. So here's my hope, is that during the upcoming session, you'll be able to carve out another 20 minutes with me so we can kind of update on all these moving pieces. And then maybe after session, hopefully someday, mid-21, a live event where you and I could chat with an audience and you take questions. But I really appreciate you carving this time aside for us to talk to our members, and wish you the best as you gear up for a session and do the work of the people.
Two quick things, if I can throw them in. You mentioned one thing that I think a lot of people in office don't realize: relationships. If you don't build relationships with other people, you're not successful. You can't get things through. Nobody can do it alone. And however it is, you have to build that. And I would look forward to doing a town hall with you. I've done a couple. Gosh, I did one at the library that every seat was full and they were around the walls. And I stood there and took questions for 3 hours. But I enjoyed it, and I think that most of the people did, and it's great to get to the people like that. So.
Yeah. Well, look forward to it, and wish you the best, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ron.